Okay, Chinese orchestra. There's some confusion when we talk about Chinese orchestra. Some people think that it's an orchestra consists of Chinese or Western orchestras. But no, when we refer to Chinese orchestra, it means this, that we play Chinese traditional instruments in the orchestra. Hong Kong Chinese Orchestra has 4 sections, and much like most of the Chinese orchestra in the world, the 4 sections are, we have here the plucked strings, which is very unique. And we have at the corner the percussion group. The gentlemen at the back, they are wind instruments. Over here, strings, but bow string. Plucked strings and bow strings. So we have 4 sections altogether. Xiaoren is the highest pitch instruments in the plucked strings family. The other one I'm going to introduce is zhongruan. Xiao means small, zhongruan means medium size, ruan. And then it's a tenor instrument. Chinese music is not only about the notes and the pitches, it's about how we play. It's like how we speak. And if you notice, there are a lot of ornamentations when we play our Chinese instruments. Sliding notes or portamento is quite a feature, it's a characteristic of Chinese. We have to begin with this instrument. It's called erhu. It's the base of Chinese bowstring instruments. Erhu means 2 strings fiddle. What's interesting about this lute is, why does it sound different? First, it's made of bamboo, and it has a hole that's specifically designed to put a piece of thin membrane from a cross-section from the reed. So with this membrane, it sounds very Chinese and lute. This is a very different way of playing cymbals. You get all kind of tone colors and timbres when you play it differently, using different angles and hitting in different angles. But usually, if you listen to cymbals, it's loud. We developed the techniques into imitating ducks. Do they look like ducks? I'm sure they don't. They are very handsome.
My name is Krista D.C. Quinn, and I'm the collections manager at the Spurlock Museum at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. No matter what you're packing, you're trying to diffuse shock. A bike helmet has the vents for your head so that your head can remain cool, but it also, the styrofoam that's built into it has air in it. So it doesn't allow the shock to travel through into the piece. So that's really what you're trying to do. The piece is laying down in the crate. This piece is meant to be standing up, so they actually have a small mount on the inside. You'll see the diagonal boards going across that this piece can then be stood up in the crate. The crossbars are so that the piece doesn't actually move out of position, so it stays flat in the crate where it needs to. And of course, the wood is not exactly soft. What they have here is they have padding so that it doesn't scratch up the artifact. Well, if you look at the horse's legs, they're lifted up, so they're not touching the ground, and they're wrapped to help protect them. And imagine being in a car and you feel the road. That's what these pieces feel, is they feel the road. So this is to help it ride so that the legs aren't being, don't have a lot of vibration going into them. If you look at the point where the legs connect with the horse's body, that's a really small point. And those can get damaged pretty easily because, again, the piece was meant to just stand up, not travel. Whenever we ship, we try and take as much apart as possible, because that way you don't have friction or you don't have pieces rubbing together. This is a difficult piece to move. This particular piece, it's big, it's large, and it's also heavy, and it's also fragile in that it can't deal with an impact. Pretty much you want to spend a lot of time talking to all the people on your team, making sure that everything is just right. You want to make sure you know where you're moving the piece to. You want to make sure that that people are out of the way, that everyone knows what's going on. The packers for these pieces were really clever here. What they did is they had a little internal mount that the piece moved out of the crate on, so you didn't have to lift the piece straight out of the crate. It glides out, and this way it's easier to move and it's safer for the piece. It's easier to move things around on wheels than it is to pick it up and move it. There's less chance of doing it harm. What you're doing here, it's kind of like sliding on your kitchen, on your kitchen floor with your socks on, in the early morning or whatever. You're just able to slide it, slide across. So that's what they're doing, is they're kind of putting this piece, on a slippery surface or on a pair of socks and sliding it across the floor.
1, 2, 3.
What we do is when we lift something large, we count it out, 1, 2, 3, and lift. That way you don't have one person on your team deciding, I want to lift right now, while somebody else, maybe doing something else, looking over at another person, not paying attention. You want to make sure your entire team lifts together, so they did do that well. 5 hours for a move like this, actually, they did it in pretty good time. It didn't seem like anyone got hurt, and the piece was just fine. So that's what careful planning is all about. A mount, it's a structure that holds up an artifact that makes it presentable to you. So it holds up a piece so that you could see it better. At home, you may have seen plate holders or that kind of thing that hold things in place. In terms of mounting, it's the same thing as packing or moving. You look at where the weak points are on the piece and where you need to support it. Some pieces can just stand on their own and they're completely fine. We don't know why it's not as flat as it was, but it wasn't sitting on a stage like this. We know that for sure. So the fact that it came here and it wasn't standing completely straight is not unusual. Those little sticks of wood are shims. So what they're doing is they're putting little sticks of wood underneath it to kind of stabilize it. It's like when you're at a restaurant and the table's shaking a little bit, so you take a couple of napkins and stick it underneath one of the table legs to kind of secure it into place. That's what they're doing. The little clamps are probably to help secure it into place. What it does is this just creates it's kind of like taking the same analogy we have the table legs, and you just take a little strap and strap it down into place. That would keep it from further wobbling. So that's what this is doing. There's obviously, a hole in the neck, and that there's like a tongue and groove, so to speak, so that there's a piece that sticks inside. You don't mount a piece if you don't need to. If it sits in place and it's comfortable there, you leave it. The pieces are built to fit together, so the artist who originally built them so that they would fit together, so they'd be able to stand for thousands of years intact. So the artist did a good job.